and it is my honor to be able to welcome Dr. Vincent Giampapa to the call today. And Dr. Giampapa is one of the fathers of the anti-aging movement in this country. He's the founder of the American Academy of Anti-Aging and has written a number of books including The Gene Makeover, as you can see, Breaking the Aging Code, Quantum Longevity, and he's been on Dr. Oz's program on television, a lot of news media, radio shows across the country and around the world. Dr. Giampapa comes with a long list of credentials, and he's elected to join our company and bring his knowledge and his products, to Jeunesse Global. And so it's a real honor to have you here with us, Dr. Giampapa, today. And I know we got a lot of information to cover, so let's get right to it. I'll turn it over to you, and I'll step aside and let you proceed with the slides and your lecture today. Thank you for being here with us.
My pleasure, my pleasure. And I think with that, I just wanted to make a very kind of brief background comment that the science that we'll be discussing today is really just truly a revolutionary step in what was originally termed nutrition, but today what we found out is that specific compounds actually interact at either the genetic level of the cell or the pathways that are directly involved with the genes that are essential to maintain our optimal health and to help us age optimally. So in essence, what we'll be talking about today is a product that really is a whole new category. It's not a vitamin mineral supplement, but it's really a nutrigenetic compound that has been designed to optimize how your cells works from the DNA, which is the origin of the aging process, outward. And really what makes Jeunesse completely different is the concept of working at the origin of the aging process rather than working on the effects of the aging process, which is really the focus on most other companies. So that's really the big difference in what we're going to be addressing today. I'm looking at here how I can advance this slide, so I'm not sure again how to do that. There we go. Thank you. The second slide, and I want to make sure I'm on the right one, the science behind AM and PM essentials is really what I've just talked about. And with these two labels, I think it's really important to make a comment about why we have two specific formulas that are different in certain ways. One of the key things that the human body is designed around is what we call a chronobiology concept, and that is in the morning and in the evening, certain aspects of the nervous system, and it's really the autonomic nervous system, are designed to function differently. For instance, the autonomic nervous system has two parts: the sympathetic system, which is what is active in the morning, and the parasympathetic, which is active in the PM. So one of the ways to remember this is parasympathetic PM, and AM is the sympathetic or sunny component of the normal biorhythm or bioclock of the body. So in the morning we need to have the sympathetic system active, which is what keeps us or gets us awake and running for the activities of the day. In the PM we need to have the parasympathetic system more active to help us get a good night's sleep and really optimize cellular repair. So for that reason, my research and many other people have actually shown that by balancing this autonomic nervous system function, we actually can improve our health. So that in alone is a concept behind this nutrigenetic product. And why is that important is because the body's really designed for cellular repair, mainly in the evening, and during the day our body really needs to be at its optimal for energy, for processing information and activity. So as we age, we lose that normal balance of sympathetic sunny morning and parasympathetic PM in the evening process, and it actually reverses, which is why many people as they age feel sluggish in the morning and really can't sleep at night. So by using certain compounds we can help regulate that autonomic nervous system and chronobiology inside the cell. Okay, so we'll move on to the next one. Somebody's clicking for me on that next slide if they can. Okay, why are these vitamins important? Let me make a comment right now about this slide. Because Neutrogena is not specifically a vitamin mineral supplement, we need to kind of clarify the whole concept here. We definitely have vitamins and minerals in the product. Many of these vitamins and minerals, particularly the ones that are you see here, are part of what has been considered essential components to support the other four complexes in this product. And many of them have functions that kind of overlap. So although you'll see these vitamins listed, and particularly they don't seem like they're in very large amounts in certain cases, they will actually be synergistic with the other four key complexes we'll be talking about in a minute. So when people say to me, gee, do I really need to take another vitamin mineral supplement? My answer to them is really no, you don't, provided you're eating a reasonable meal for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And we'll talk about that in the evening a little bit later as some of these other slides come up. So I think we need to talk about why do we have actually certain vitamins, minerals in the evening, and have more or less of them in the AM and PM formula. Okay, so again, the whole concept here is based on the research that I've been intimately involved with over the last 10 years. Is certain compounds and certain vitamins, and particularly minerals, help regulate that autonomic nervous system function, or help you stay more relaxed in the evening as opposed to being relaxed in the morning and really not energetic, and vice versa. So what we've done is try to change the blend of the PM and the AM components of these vitamins and minerals to help regulate the autonomic nervous system. Okay, next. So the key functions of these minerals, let's take a look at some of these minerals. For instance, zinc, selenium, copper. Okay, particularly zinc and selenium, or zinc itself, are major substrates to the DNA repair process. And Neutrogena in particular has its key focus on targeting DNA, which again is the origin of the aging process. So the minerals that you'll actually see in here have been chosen for specific reasons to act as catalysts or enzymes around a number of different reactions that involve DNA repair, DNA maintenance, and also particularly, as you'll notice, some of the minerals in the PM are different than the AM. These are things that also help quiet the nervous system down in the evening. Okay, next. Okay, one of the other key concepts we should discuss is the idea of trying to obtain everything you need in 2 tablets in the morning and the evening. And is this enough for a 24-hour balance of minerals, or should we still eat certain foods? Okay, and this will tie into some of the other information we have today about digestive enzymes and about food in general. What we need to keep in mind is, for instance, as we age, particularly as we hit 30 and over, one of the first systems that we lose functionality with is the digestive system. And as we grow older, for instance, we are able to absorb nutrients, vitamins, and minerals less efficiently from our digestive tract, which means that even if we ate the perfect balance of carbohydrates, proteins, and fats for breakfast, for lunch, and for dinner, when we're in our 40s or 50s or even 60s and 70s, we do not get the nutrient value from the food because both our digestive enzymes, our intestinal bacteria, have changed dramatically due to the aging process. So one of the things that we have to keep in mind is Neutrogena has been designed to help give you key specific vitamins and minerals in conjunction with your meals. So We do recommend, for instance, that you definitely take your AMs with your breakfast meal, your PMs right after your dinner, so they're part of your digestive process, and they can aid in helping you extract and obtain more nutrient value from the food you eat to compensate for the fact that the GI tract, as it's aging, is losing some of its absorption capacity. So when we talk about should we still eat certain foods, in a number of my books, particularly the Anti-Aging Solution, what we discussed in detail were the types of foods that help give us the optimal quantities of antioxidants, fiber, carbohydrates, the right types of carbohydrates, and protein. So for instance, there's certain foods you definitely want to eat, and those are things that are alkaline, those are things that have high fiber, and those are things that have low glycemic index kind of sugar levels. And in many books you can find those, particularly in the book The Anti-Aging Solution, and even the Gene Makeover, my most recent books, will help guide you on what types of foods to eat. And in the very near future, my goal is to be able to have those specific foods listed on the website, on Jeunesse's website, so you can peek at that and really get an idea of what to stay with and what not to stay with. So in summary, with this slide, the product is about utilizing a reasonable diet with this very, very special combination of nutrigenetic materials. Okay, next one. Okay, this is a very, very important concept and question. So free radicals, again, as we have discussed in the past, are really the end product of our body's metabolism of carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. So every time we take a bite of food that has all three of those components to the food product, those carbohydrates, proteins, and fats have to be turned into energy inside the cell. Okay, and that happens mainly in the mitochondria of the cell, that these components are turned into energy. And when that happens, the body's process actually creates free radicals. And if you'll think of the free radicals kind of as the exhaust from your engine, and the carbohydrates, proteins, and fats as the fuel that the engine needs to run on, what we end up is a pretty clear picture, if you will, from an analogy point of view, of what happens. Well, these free radicals are released from us utilizing or metabolizing our fuel. And free radicals are really high energy particles. They're not really, if you will, solid objects, but they're literally like points of light or energy particles. Now these free radicals create damage to the cell membrane, okay, as well as the DNA inside the cell. And we're going to talk a lot about that in a minute. Now, over the last few decades, we've really noticed and learned about what can we do to buffer this exhaust product so that the damage that occurs to both the cell membrane and the genetic software inside the cells is much less or is more controllable. So the damage to the cell membrane is important for a number of reasons. Number one, if the cell membrane is damaged on its outer surface, which is where most of the free radical damage occurs, that's the lipid membrane, the receptors for our hormones, the receptors for cell communication, and the receptors for a number of other essential processes at the cellular level are damaged. So as that occurs, for instance, even if we're making testosterone or we're making estrogen or we're making DHEA, those molecules cannot function optimally, fit into the receptor sites, and help the cell stay healthy. So from the membrane point of view, that's really kind of the focus here on preserving receptor site function. And from the DNA point of view, we're going to talk about that in a minute. So the complexes that we use, for instance, for free radicals have been selectively chosen to do what's called cycling free radical buffering. And that means the following in simple terms. If you don't use the right combinations of antioxidants, you can inhibit certain steps in buffering the free radicals. But in reality, if you're not using the right types and quantities of free radicals, those high energy particles cannot be passed down from one molecule to the molecule below it and the molecule below that to slowly decrease that molecular, the charge on this free radical, so that it's then neutralized. Many people have actually documented, many researchers documented a concept called oxidative stress. And if you take too many of one type of antioxidant, you can actually increase your free radical levels. So although people will say, well, I take plenty of antioxidants, it's really about the right type. And in this formula, what you'll notice, the majority of these compounds are all natural. Some of them are from green vegetables, some from red vegetable, some are them from certain types of fruit. Each one of these types of extracts have been chosen in order to do what we call cycling reduction, or reducing those free radicals so that those antioxidants are available more quickly to kind of sponge up or neutralize those free radicals that are being produced. Okay, next. So let's talk about probably the crux of the aging process and staying healthy. DNA damage. Okay, DNA damage is without a question now becoming the key focus in not only the aging process, but the process of just staying healthy, and even in the process of helping to prevent cancer. The ingredients in this particular product have been tested at the University of Lund in Sweden, at a number of other very prestigious research facilities and universities throughout Europe and in the United States. And some of these ingredients, particularly the ones that we have in our DRC 100 complex, are focused on repairing DNA inside the cell. Now let's clarify what we mean by that. Inside each one of the 100 trillion cells in your body, now 100 trillion cells is a lot of cells, each one of those cells contain up to 6 feet of DNA. If we multiply 6 feet times 100 trillion, we have enough DNA, if it was laid end to end, to go to the moon and back to the earth a number of trips. So that starts to give you in your mind the level of importance of protecting DNA. DNA is the origin of the software that controls every protein in your body. It controls 30,000 genes that are the ones that have been designed to keep the human body healthy and long-lived. So how do these ingredients help? This particular formula has been designed, for instance, now to repair damage not only inside the nucleus of the cell, which contains DNA, but also the mitochondria in the cell, which contains its own form of circular or ring-like DNA. And particularly the DNA inside the mitochondria, which has very little protection around it structurally, and which is right next to, if you will, that exhaust system where the free radicals are coming out, needs to be protected optimally as well. So how do these ingredients help with DNA repair? Well, what they do is the following. They actually work at the level of the key enzymes that are involved in the DNA repair process, upregulating those enzymes. And some of those key enzymes I can talk about. One of them, and the most important one, is NF-kappa beta, which is really one of the key components that is activated in all of us as from free radicals. The more NF-kappa B is activated, the less DNA repair we have. So one of the things that these proprietary extracts from the South American herb Uncaria tomentosa, and that's one of a number of herbs we use. These herbs have a particular anti-inflammatory process. that directly helps inhibit NF-kappa B. They have another process that actually augments apoptosis, which is the cell's ability to remove cells that are dying and not functional. And as important, this compound also has a specific impact on the key inflammatory compounds that interfere with DNA repair as well. The other compounds in this proprietary mixture in the AM formula have to do with focusing on DNA repair in the mitochondria, and particularly not only single-strand breaks of DNA, but double-strand breaks of DNA. Now, double-strand breaks are the type that we see with ionizing radiation or people on chemotherapy, and these are the ones that are really, really dangerous. And the research that I have produced, as well as some of my other associates and colleagues, have documented that this combination of specific compounds repairs both single and double-strand breaks. And we're going to see in a minute that double-strand breaks and these type of breaks are the key things that interact with telomeres. So what type of damage is caused when a DNA strand breaks? Okay, we're going to talk about that for a moment. We just touched briefly on single strand breaks, and in this picture you'll see a single strand break. If the little chain below it was broken, it would be a double strand break, which is much harder for the body to fix. Now, each one of the 100 trillion cells in our body suffers up to 500,000 DNA strand breaks a day. Now, that's mind-boggling. 500,000 breaks a day in each one of the cells in your body, and the almighty wisdom behind the genetics of the human being has allowed our cells to repair virtually all of it, okay? And that's what's amazing. Now, other types of damage that occur, not just breaks, but DNA itself can not only snap apart, but there's things called translocations, where segments of the DNA will actually flip into another area, and another area flip into where that segment was. And then there's damage to DNA from compounds that are artificials and chemicals that actually stick between that spiral ladder of DNA, interfering with the base pairs of DNA. So we're not just talking about this visual image here of a break in a chain, but we're actually talking about different types of abnormal twists of DNA, things that get stuck in between the ladder of the base pairs of DNA. All of these things are things that we're working with to try to avoid, so that as cells make copies of themselves, we get a perfect functional copy. Okay, next. And we'll move on to that next slide if we can, please. So how did the products work to repair this damage? Okay, we touched upon that, I think, a little bit just previously. They interact at absorbing free radicals in a highly efficient manner in both the nucleus and the DNA and the mitochondria. By lowering the level of free radicals, we get less damage. Then we use this specific complex of compounds that actually interfere with certain compounds that are, if you will, the stop switch on the DNA repair process. And so by inhibiting the stop switch, we allowed the DNA repair to actually proceed at a much more efficient and higher rate. Okay, so we'll move on to this next slide that talks about stem cell health. And this is really important too. So let's take just a second to talk about stem cells and somatic cells, which are our body cells, the ones that we see and feel, our skin, our hair, our muscles. There's two major groups of cells in the body. Okay, our body cells, somatic cells, soma from Greek meaning body, and our stem cells, which is really the source that replaces the somatic or body cells as we age. And keeping in mind again that we have DNA in the nucleus and the mitochondria of the somatic cells, we also have DNA in the nucleus and the mitochondria of our stem cells. So what we really have is 4 different sets of DNA. And again, you're going to see how important it is to keep that DNA healthy. So if the stem cells now, for instance, are suffering DNA damage, and the research shows that they suffer DNA damage like our somatic cells, those stem cells, then cannot function optimally to go to a part of the body that's been damaged to replace the body cells. So we have a problem with maintaining, for instance, our liver function or our kidney function or our lung function if these stem cells are not able to be present and do their job. So what are we looking to do in order to help maintain this complex of stem cells are the following. The vast majority of stem cells that are in the circulation come from our bone marrow. Okay, and the bone marrow itself is really the reservoir of the stem cells to be released into the bloodstream so that they can continue to float around and then get called to action when there's damage to our body's somatic cells. Now, as we age, the ability of those stem cells to be released from the bone marrow, or if you will, the gates from in our bone marrow start to close down. So we're releasing less and less stem cells into our circulation on a daily basis. Okay, and not only are we releasing less, but the quality of those stem cells tends to get less as we age also. Furthermore, the stem cells have to be sensitive to a signal from the damaged body cells so they can go to the area where they need to work and land and then reproduce and start to make allow the body cells to make more and more copies of themselves. So the ingredients in this complex have been chosen to A, help release more stem cells, B, to help to keep them more functional as they age, and C, to help with them the receptivity of those stem cells to be called to action, so to speak, by the damage in a specific area of the body. Okay, we'll go on. Next cell, please. Okay, good. Now this is a kind of an interesting process. Let's get back to the initial concept we spoke about, which was this AM/PM cell bio clock, if you will. Okay, and one of the key things that we've become aware of in research again is if we fall asleep and when we go to bed and we fall into what's called deep sleep, that is really the brain has a number of, if you will, electrical levels of activity. There's alpha, there's beta, there's theta, and there's delta. Now, when we're in deep sleep, or what's been referred to as REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep, what happens is the body's mainly in theta and delta. And it's in theta and delta when the brain releases things like growth hormone, which is essential to the cell repair process. Okay? And so if our cell repair process, that is the machinery inside our body cells, has been turned on by this deep sleep and the release of certain chemicals, growth hormone being one of them, then our stem cells can work more efficiently. So for instance, in this PM formula, we have L-glutamine. And L-glutamine is one of the things that helps actually get your body into a deeper REM state, number one, or theta state. We also have melatonin, which we saw previously in one of the as one of the ingredients in the PM product, that also helps get you into a faster sleep and stay in sleep. Now, everybody kind of views melatonin as a compound to help you sleep. So it has many other functions, which we're going to talk about in just a little bit. But more importantly, the concept here of having your body get into a state where the cell's bio clock is more primed for cell repair is the idea, and then have those stem cells be able to do their job more efficiently. Okay, next, please. Okay. Okay, well, the telomere complex and telomere maintenance. I think probably, without a question, the most important breakthrough in cell aging, the aging science, is the concept of telomeres and what we've learned really over the last decade, but more importantly over the last, I would say, 2 years or a year and a half. Now, for those of you who are new to the concept of what a telomere is. It is, if you think of it as the cellular aging clock, okay, or if you think of it actually as an hourglass. So if you turn an hourglass over and you watch the sand start to pour into the bottom of the hourglass, what you're going to realize is immediately is, well, there's a fixed amount of time that that sand is going to take to go to the bottom of the hourglass, and then the sand is going to stop running. So in essence, a telomere is really like your exactly what I just talked to you about. One of these little mechanisms that you can watch the sand disappear. Once a telomere continues to shorten, and a telomere shortens every time a cell makes a copy of itself, okay? And in the laboratory, cells can make copies of themselves pretty much up to about 50 times, and then they stop dividing. And if they stop dividing, they are no longer functional, okay? So the whole concept here is to help slow that cellular clock down so that you not only can have those cells around functioning healthier, but functioning longer. So let's take a look at this picture. And if you take a look at the picture, you'll notice that on the end of this little X figure is a chromosome. That's where the telomeres are located. They're really protective caps at the end of each one of our chromosomes. And each time that cell divides, the telomere gets shorter and shorter until the cell can no longer divide, and it becomes what's called senescent or quiescent. Actually, it becomes quiescent first, and then senescent afterwards. So the telomeres are shortened primarily due to the normal aging process, but also we found out that the key things that rapidly shorten your telomeres are a lot of free radicals, or what we call oxidative stress, a lot of inflammation, okay, which we tend to get as we get older, elevated cortisol, okay, and as well compounds that we've been able to measure called homocysteine, which is a compound that we all tend to get higher amounts of as we age. The other things that also shorten telomeres are when we have too much body fat and less muscle mass, when we're stressed psychologically, if we're cigarette smokers or we drink a lot of alcohol, particular cigarette smoking, your telomeres will shorten dramatically quicker. So the enzyme that regrows those telomeres is called telomerase, and it is virtually absent in most cells, except for a few cells like our white blood cells and our bone marrow cells and our for instance, germline cells. So there's a large body of science that shows that the shorter your telomeres are, the more directly involved this process is in a number of age-related processes. These include thinning and loss of your hair, bone density, okay, which women suffer much more than men due to the hormonal changes. Particularly, and one of the most important things is a decrease in immune function. So as our telomeres shorten, our immune function, without a question, declines rapidly, and frankly, without a strong immune function, we succumb to many types of bacteria and virus infections. Arthritis, heart disease, coronary arteries, particularly atherosclerosis, insulin resistance or diabetes, cancer incidence, and if we get cancer, we're more likely to die from it than survive it, and in general, just a reduced health span. So the most important thing is trying to maintain or slow, or what we call protect and maintain our telomeres. Okay, so we'll move to the next slide, please. We'll move to the next slide, and we're going to discuss in a minute this telomere. Here we go. Okay, the telomere maintenance complex. Okay, so what have we put in here? This is the results of the most recent. I think we go back one more slide to that. If you can go back one to the telomere maintenance complex. Okay, we're going. Here we go. The telomere maintenance complex has been designed to utilize specific compounds that have been documented by published research in peer-reviewed journals to protect the telomeres, to help keep them from shortening, to help maintain their length, as well as to activate at a modest level the enzyme telomerase. So it is a combination, okay, of specific types of natural occurring compounds that we have put in here that work synergistically with the other complexes that will actually directly impact telomere length, maintenance, protection. And for instance, in the PM formula, you'll notice here is valerian root. Well, that is another one of the compounds we've put in here in order to help get you to sleep quicker, so that you're in that level of biochronicity where cell repair can also improve while you're sleeping. But the compounds that are listed in both the AM and PM telomerase maintenance complex together are made up of these key complexes that in the past we did not know had effects on the actual telomerase enzyme, but now we do. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, calorie restriction mimetics. Well, in my lectures and talks, and particularly in my book, The Gene Makeover, we looked at populations throughout the world that we wondered, why do they live longer, number one, and why do they live a healthier lifestyle or seem to have a healthier quality of life as they get older. And we looked at lifestyle, we looked at things they ate, and what we found out is the key component to people, for instance, like in Okinawa or Sardinia, which are areas where people live longer, healthier lives, was the amount of food they ate. So if you reduce the total numbers of calories and the types of calories, what happens is specific genes inside your cells work differently. Okay, and this is again a program that has been part of humanity since we evolved. So by cutting calories, certain genes get turned off and other genes get turned on. What we then learned over the last decade is if we gave you certain compounds, and particularly the ones in here, phyzatine, terastilbene, resveratrol, those compounds in particular actually interacted or reacted with different sets of genes on each one of our cells. So by putting these compounds together as a, if you will, synergistic complex, we can, to a degree, mimic calorie restriction or reproduce it inside the cell on a genetic level. And that was a big breakthrough. So by mimicking calorie restriction, what we're really doing is learning to turn off certain genes that are detrimental to our health and aging process and allowing the genes that were more positive to stay active. So restriction mimetics, calorie restriction mimetics, and gene expression are essential components of how these products work together. Next. Okay, we'll go ahead on the next slide, please. Okay. Aside from just calorie restriction mimetics, in this complex particularly, we have other things. For instance, royal jelly contains with it specific compounds that also interact at the level of not only our DNA but our RNA. And the proteins in royal jelly have been shown to also have an impact on the genes that are involved in calorie restriction. For instance, let me just make a comment. The queen bee in a hive of bees is the only bee in millions of bees that is fed royal jelly. Now, why is that important? Well, the queen bee lives 10 to 20 to 30 times longer than all the other bees. There is something in royal jelly, and we're now starting to get a better picture of it. And these are compounds that interact with not specifically DNA, but the RNA that DNA produces in order to affect changes in how certain genes work. Okay, and to keep it simple, it's a kind of new form of gene expression modifier. The other things like coenzyme Q10 are things that help at the mitochondrial level to boost the energy of the cells so that these genes can continue to function a little more optimally. And there are a number of other things. For instance, cordyceps is a compound also that's been known to not only stimulate immune support, but to do other things at the genetic level to work synergistically with our other compounds. Okay, next. Okay, let's go back to the comment that I made a little bit earlier at the beginning of the hour about this whole kind of magic age area where we hit 30 years of age. And I want to tie that in to a number of the key components or complexes in our Neutrogene formula. Once we hit 30, we talked about our loss of our ability to digest the food we eat, even if it was the perfect breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Let's say we're over 30, we might get, we're 30 to 40, we might get 70% of the nutrients, vitamins, minerals, cofactors, things in the food that we ate, okay? But if we're in our 20s, we'll get 100% of that nutrient. So now you start to see, if in the 20s we're digesting 100% of our nutrient, vitamins, minerals, in the 30s maybe 70%, and once we hit 40 or 50, maybe we're down to 60%, you start to see what happens with the fact that we're eating food, and although none of us eat the perfect meal, we're not getting the nutrient value out of that food. So digestive enzymes are an essential component to a genetic supplement program, so that they help compensate for the fact that we lose this digestive ability. And the digestive enzymes that we've utilized are a combination of fat digesting enzymes, fiber digesting enzymes, protein digesting enzymes, a whole mixture of things that our body normally produces when we're in our 20s and optimally healthy, that we lose as we age. So that's the reason behind the digestive enzymes at both the morning and the evening, where we're really eating our essential meals. Okay, we'll move on to the next one. Probiotic blends in the digestive enzymes. Now, as we age, and again, this relates to the aging process inside our intestines, we not only lose digestive enzymes, and that's the ability of the body to extract the nutrient value, vitamins, minerals from that food we eat, but inside our intestines are normal bacteria. Okay, the lactobacillus bacteria is one of the, it comes in a number of different kind of, if you will, family members, and those are essential to help during the digestive process to take the raw materials from our food and turn them into active forms of vitamins. Okay, so if we don't have the right kind of balance of these lactobacillus, we again might digest more of the vitamins and minerals, but we may not be getting the optimal amounts of certain other vitamins and components we need if we had a more optimal blend of this specific gastrointestinal bacteria. So what we've done is added the lactobacillus, key types of lactobacillus, acidophilus, plantarum, bifidum, and casi. These are the main groups, or if you will, cousins of the lactobacillus bacteria, that allow us to get more vitamin, or if you will, nutrient value out of the foods along with the digestive enzymes. Okay, we'll move on to the next slide. We're throwing there's a lot of information packed into the concept that went into the design of this product. And I think one of the most important things to keep in mind is Neutrogene is really the evolution of what we've learned from not only nutritional science, but genetics, biochemistry, and particularly the most important thing is how different compounds and complexes can work together synergistically, so that you do not have to take 30 tablets in the morning and 40 tablets in the evening, you get the same effect. For instance, let me give you a little bit of information. We went ahead and took out and we isolated out, and if you look at this, there's approximately 72 ingredients in AM and PM formula. We actually went to 3 of the vitamin chains and bought those supplements, vitamins, minerals, cofactors separately in order to see, gee, how efficiently have we done this process? And we did this a number of years ago. Well, to supply the same amounts of the AM and PM compounds, the amount of tablets one would have to swallow was physically impossible. We had somewhere around 40 tablets in the morning and more so in the evening. Aside from that, the cost was somewhere around the mid $350 range to obtain the same compounds, but you couldn't even eat them all because there was too many capsules. The other thing we need to know about the actual production of the AM/PM Neutrogena products, there's a special proprietary process that actually is used to manufacture them. One of the biggest fallacies in the vitamin mineral industry is that a capsule you're taking, you're actually absorbing, and your blood levels are actually able to detect this. So in order to make this very special formula bioavailable, we had to create a different process so that when these ingredients are compressed under pressure, A, they don't damage the enzymes that are essential for the activity, and B, once they're in your gastrointestinal tract, they actually open up like a sponge and are absorbed. And one of the things, one of the last things we wanted to see was people telling us, gee, I took this and I actually saw tablets in my bowel movement. And believe me, I have actually seen that with many other products. And I can assure you, one of the key things we spent over a year on is bioavailability. Not only do we solve this problem, and one of the ways to actually prove this is if you take an AM or PM tablet and drop it in a glass of water and come back in about 15 minutes, you will see it starts to open up like a mushroom. And as it starts to open up like a mushroom or sponge, if you just touch it with a spoon or something, you'll see it just breaks apart. And if you want to try that with some of the other vitamin mineral supplements, you'll immediately become impressed as far as bioavailability is concerned. So keeping in mind that this is a whole new category of an age management or youthful aging product, we have to understand that, for instance, women certainly need more calcium in their diet. Most of us will need some extra omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids if we're not eating an optimal diet. So based upon the quality of the diet and food you're eating, there's certain compounds you definitely want to take if you're a female, and particularly if you're not eating optimal meals. But in essence, what Neutrogena AM and PM have accomplished is the most up-to-date and modern formula to optimize cellular health from the origin of the aging process, that is the DNA, to the outside of your skin and the outside of your body. Okay, so we'll move on to the next one. So we've discussed so far in this seminar 4 things. Okay, we've talked about calorie restriction mimetics and how calorie restriction genetic profiles, you have a healthier life and you have a decrease in the diseases of aging that we normally see. We talked about the importance of DNA damage as perhaps not only in the nucleus but in the mitochondria, the essence of keeping our cells healthy. We talked about stem cell maintenance and how the stem cells actually repair the damaged somatic cells, and how regulating this whole process of AM sunny, energetic, and PM sleep patterns helps with cell repair. Next slide. Okay, and again, these stem cells are found and repair the whole body. It's a whole essential concept in the new theory on aging at the cellular level. Calorie restriction we mentioned, but not only calorie restriction does it help in health, but as we age, our mitochondria or our energy factors, the mitochondria number in our cells decrease dramatically. So by recreating this type of genetic profile, we actually help with maintaining our numbers of mitochondria. Okay, next. Okay, boom, there we go. And telomeres, probably the most important new information on the forefront is if we can, and we know we can, and we have the data to prove it already, help protect, help maintain the length of our telomeres, keep them longer, to keep them functioning more optimally, and to keep them protected from free radicals, from elevated cortisol, from excessive inflammation, from high levels of homocysteine, and combine that with the information for a healthy lifestyle, we can dramatically, if you will, improve the quality of our cellular aging clocks. Okay, next. One of the things I wanted to make a comment on before we come to this last slide is the following. I have been designing Neutrogene for 12 years, and as the years go by, we've tested this in physicians' clinics. We've actually drawn blood tests on people to see, gee, do their levels of antioxidants go up? Do their levels of inflammation go down? How does their DNA repair capacity, or actually the amount of DNA damage, go down, and does the DNA enzymes activity goes up? And the answer to all of these things is yes. The concept behind this product and the evidence that this product works has been published in peer-reviewed journals, tested on human beings, and the data is there. And Jeunesse actually has copies of those publications. So to me, the real important concept here is that these four complexes that we've discussed in detail, starting from DNA damage to telomeres to stem cells to calorie restriction, on their own individually work dramatically to help improve the quality of health. But what we have here is a complex of these four key pieces of the latest scientific information that alone work well, but together work even dramatically well. And it's the synergy of the science, the ingredients, the compounds, the manufacturing process that makes this product so unique that no one in this industry has anything that can come close to what this product could do. And the proof of the pudding is when you take it. And without a question, as you start to use this product, as early as the first 4 or 5 days, you'll sleep better, your energy will be better in the morning, and you'll notice a whole host of other things that improve the quality of your day-to-day life. So without a question, we started 20 years ago, the fact that aging was inevitable. The myth up until very recently that there was nothing we could do about it, but the true fact is the science and products that you've looked at today just briefly are actually now here from Jeunesse to make a major difference in the quality of your life and everybody else you speak to. So I like to end this by saying everybody who is involved with Jeunesse is much more than a distributor. You are all really ambassadors to health. You are leaders in the field of longevity, and you will change every person that you interact with. You have the ability to change the quality of their lives. Thank you.